Hi, Misha here, and it seemed like a good idea to do kind of a family overview of Arsenal milled rifles. I'll go into a little more detail. The idea. Honestly, it was a pretty day and we felt like shooting these. So we have some shooting footage. And as a dealer, a question is often brought up. Which Arsenal should I buy? Or what are the pros and cons? You know, what's about this one that's better over that one? There's been a lot of interest in the mill guns lately for, a number of reasons. And finally, I'm often asked about some of my own personal guns, which these are. So, I thought in this video we would look at each model, compare and contrast, and maybe give you a good idea as to which one, if any, is for you. And if not that, at least maybe entertain you for half an hour and show each of these at the range. So it was a really pretty day. And tonight it's a full moon, so it's always fun. There's always interesting folks come out on full moons. But, yeah. On the left, we have the Arsenal SAM7 UF. Then we have the SAM7R. Next, we have the SAM7 SF. And then finally, we have the SAM7K Pistol. All of these have several things in common with each other. For one, these are all imports. None of these were assembled in the USA. They all were originally built as Sporter semi-autos in Bulgaria by Arsenal AD, also known as Circle 10 or Factory 10. All are built on true milled receivers. All have chrome-lined, cold hammer-forged barrels. All are chambered for 7.62 by 39. And all have a standard, i.e. double stack, magazine well, which is capable of accepting anything from a little 5-rounder, as in this gun here, up to the standard 30. And of course, older mags like the steel one, and drums. And all of these are a semi-automatic version or variant, or at the very least based on an actual production gun from Arsenal, Bulgaria. You know, one that they actually make for a military client and select fire. And finally, all of these are more or less in current production or offering. None of these are, a 20-year-old collectible, like, for example, the SA93, which, yes, we do have several videos on, and is a really cool Bulgarian import, but I wanted to focus on modern guns here, and also ones that you realistically can quite easily find. So, let's get to looking at these on an individual basis, show some range footage, and then talk about a little bit of detail. Go from there. So let's start with this guy here. SAM7 UF. The exact long form name of this gun is SAM7 UF-85. I mention that because when I've had these on Gunbroker, people ask me what is the difference between SAM7 UF and SAM7 UF-85. Nothing. It's the same gun, exactly. The SAM7 UF is just a short form name. Arsenal uses dashes after the name to denote minor variations, for example, coloration in furniture, or perhaps different handguards or muzzle device, or so on and so forth. But this is pretty much the only variant. There are a few others, but this is the one you'll see with the traditional black modern type handguards and pistol grip. So the big feature, or the big distinguishing feature, is of course the underfolding stock. This is steel with a folding butt plate. What I think is neat about these, they have the very, to me, classic AK Type 3 taper to the back of the receiver. But unlike an AK Type 3, this uses an AKMS pattern of underfolding stock. The original AK Type 3 underfolder only locked on the left side. The AKMS style, such as this one here, locks on the left and the right, meaning it has a total of 4 locking points. Also, it has squared off stock arms, which come out at more of a straight angle. The original stock would be rounded and comes down at a sharper angle. For a traditional pistol grip, no rail because of the underfolding stock. Otherwise, it's your standard machined receiver, smooth top cover, standard rear sight, standard handguards with heat shield, cleaning rod under the barrel, 90-degree gas block, and it has, I went ahead and put the Bulgarian bayonet on. It has the lug, an AKM style lug, under the gas block and goes around the muzzle. This has 14mm threads, and most of the time these will ship with a standard muzzle nut. As with all the modern Bulgarian guns, this has a standard AKM, so a lighter weight barrel. And this is good because it really does save on weight out front. It helps kind of counterbalance the machined receiver. This one here of mine is pretty much exactly straight out of the box, and it is a good representation of an AR M1F, which is the underfolding version of their most essentially basic military rifle. Of course, you can put whatever 14mm muzzle device you might want on it. And it'll take any mag, as I said. And of course, you can put different pistol grips and handguards on it. Anything kind of meant for a milled receiver. The underfolding stock is actually very tight with next to no play. Anyone who's ever shot An underfolder knows they have a propensity to wiggle. This is about as tight as they get. Also, underfolding stocks are good when they're folded up. There's very little sticking out of the back. It's very flush. And because you're spreading the stock diameter, width out equal on both sides, when it's folded up, it essentially adds no width to the gun. So, for maximum compactness, underfolding stocks are quite good. However, the flip side, many persons find the metal stock to not be very comfortable on the old face. Plus you have a metal butt plate with kind of that forked open against the shoulder. So even though the footprint is large, it can dig into your shoulder. Also, some find it difficult to acquire and use the iron sights. So that is one thing to know about any underfolding gun. And also, as I said, remember there is no scope rail. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same as the other versions. The barrel, the trigger, which the triggers on these are actually Bulgarian. Double hook forged triggers. So, and of course things like your bolt throw and all that are as smooth as anything else. And the sights are your basic AKM type leaf adjustable and post adjustable front. And of course we have sling swivel here on the handguard retainer and here on the around the button, which also kind of acts as a guard. Although this button is on most underfolders is stiff enough that having it accidentally hit is not really likely. Well, that's the SAM7 underfolder. What about the SAM with the fixed stock? SAM7R. SAM7R, by the way. Well, the R in the name stands for rail. And this one I have modified a respectable amount from the original, but mostly superficial. Mostly. One thing I want to address. In 2012, Arsenal reintroduced the SLR 101S. This was actually a gun they imported way back around 2001, 2002, but then they stopped when they started doing US stuff. And then when they resumed importation on a large scale, they were doing a lot of stamped receiver guns. Well, in 2012, they brought back a true milled import, and that was the SLR 101S. In 2013, there was a simple name change to SAM7R, this gun here. A few reasons for that. I think one, they wanted to have all SLR marked guns, like the 107, 106, 104, 105, as stamped receiver. And they had already been using SAM7 for mill guns assembled here. Also, named SLR 101, it could not be sold in California because that state, in all of its wisdom, banned the gun, not by feature, but by name. SLRs are banned by name in California. However, SAMs are not. So by changing the name, it became magically legal in California. So yeah, there's that. This is pretty much their basic model. Comes in. This accepts standard AK Type 3 furniture. As with the others, it does have the modern style of thinner barrel with a 90-degree gas block. It has the so-called accessory lug. And then we'll talk about that in a second. Might as well now. When these usually come in, they have the same front end. Oh, is this over here with the traditional front sight base and 14mm threads. Typically, you can buy them from Arsenal with either the kind of shark gill 4-port muzzle brake or the Bulgarian 4-piece flash hider. For mine, though, I wanted to have a more modern ARM1 clone. Now, for militaries and select fire, Arsenal offers the ARM1 with either 14mm threads and the bayonet lug under the gas block, or a more AK-74 style assembly with 24mm threads and the bayonet lug under the front sight base. So for mine here, I had a Bulgarian 24mm with bayonet lug, obviously, front sight base put on, and then I have a Bulgarian so-called egg beater birdcage flash hider to give it more of the modern look. It's worth noting that with the U.S. assembled guns, Arsenal did offer something very similar to this, known as the SAM7 A1, but that's a story for a different day. Another change I made is the furniture. As you see, this originally had the same pistol grip here and handguards here. Yeah, kind of boring, I thought. And it had just a standard, just buttstock. I picked up a set of what is called ARM9 furniture. This is very modern furniture used on, well, the ARM9 and a few others. And I really like this furniture. The handguard is more of a triangular shape. This flares out, and even the upper handguard is different. It actually flares out at the bottom a bit more. Still has a heat shield inside. This handguard set seems really good at distributing heat. It also gives a wider grip, and it also keeps your hand, I don't know, I just find it more ergonomic. I really do. As for the buttstock, it is a longer length, essentially NATO, and it's just pretty much hollow plastic polymer, sling swivel on the side, but it has an interesting sweep to it, and also it has this very nice thick rubber recoil pad, which is curved and kind of hooked at the top. Which, even though it's NATO length, which I normally don't care for on Kalashnikovs, that kind of hooked, curved butt plate really helps it seat in the shoulder. It also lets you get a slightly higher, more forward purchase. And then finally, I have what they call their modern saw-type pistol grip, which is a little larger and more ergonomic. This would essentially be an AR-M9 clone if it had the left side safety selector, but I chose not to install it. I like it the way it is. So it's a bit of a hybrid between a newer AR-M1 and an AR-M9. Again, this is their basic rifle. And it has pretty much all the benefits of a mill gun. It has that nice Bulgarian trigger, the cold hammer forged barrel. Very smooth, nice bolt. Utter reliability. And of course a fixed buttstock, which is always going to be more comfortable than an underfolder. And you can put whatever furniture for a milled gun you want on this, be it modern like mine, or the Bulgarian Bakelite, or even traditional wood. And these guns are interesting because they have a lot of, well, they're unique. They are ARMs. They're not AK Type 3s. They're not AKMs. They're not AK-74s. They are their own thing. And while it's in the gun, might as well talk about it. We've got the so-called Circle 10 Waffle Mag. These are very famous for both price and how great they are. And they are. They're very good mags. They are expensive at $40 new, but you get what you pay for. They're actually based on a Finnish design that was worked on in the early to mid-90s. Arsenal took that, ran with it. It is metal reinforced polymer, very heavy grade, steel locking lugs, steel reinforced feed lips, steel base plate. They're just very good, very all-weather, easy to load, very easy to unload after pulling the trigger. They're just good mags. So, and they look right in a modern gun like this. And this is my same bayonet, the modern kind of Bulgarian style. The only real downside, of course, with a fixed stock, and since I put on this muzzle brake, or I should say flash hider, muzzle device, this is a bit of a long gun. It definitely was the longest of the ones we took out, but it's always a pleasure to shoot. Well, let us move on to this gun's side folding stock cousin, SAM7 SF. Of course, the SF in the name is for side folder, and the most common version is the SAM7 SF-84. There's also a railed version, -84R, and there are a couple of color variations, like with plum. This is very much like the 7R. But while this, of course, has that fixed stock, this has the folder. Essentially, the latch, the mechanism, is like the AKS-74, which is well known for being very easy to use, also with very good lockup. The stock itself is tubular, hollow steel. It is NATO length. Even though the stock is metal, it does have a thin, but still nevertheless there, rubber butt plate, which is nice. Even though it's a folder, we still retain the rail. We have a sling swivel here right behind it, which rotates 360 degrees. We have this pistol grip, and we have this thumb selector, very Galil style. This has the same ARM9 handguards, which I put on. This pistol grip is the original ARM9 pistol grip 2. from Arsenal. It ships with the standard black polymer handguards, and actually the pistol grip it ships with is essentially like the one on this gun here. So similar, but of course it has the cutout for the safety. We have a cleaning rod still under the barrel. Some places still erroneously report these do not come with cleaning rods. That's obviously not true. They don't come with the cleaning rod installed, but it is in the box. It's actually a two-piece rod because part of the folding mechanism is back here, and a traditional cleaning rod would stick into the receiver. They had to shorten the rod and put the other bit inside the mag pouch, but it's there. Now this does come from the factory with the AK-74 style setup, so accessory lug, bayonet lug, 24mm threads. I did not add that. The only thing I changed on this end, I took the AK-74 style muzzle brake off and again put on the Bulgarian flash hider. As you can see, it mounts the bayonet the same. Essentially these two guns are identical up front, the only difference being the buttstock. Also, both come with the standard green sling, but I wanted to put more modern slings on. The folder here has kind of the buckle style sling, you see. It's basically an enlarged version of a crink, and I like the material. It's made of this black nylon, and it's ribbed. It's kind of wavy shaped, and that actually helps keep the buckles in place when you adjust them. Notice up front it's also there we go. It's, if I can get it, guys, trying my best. It's canvas all the way. There's not metal, which is kind of nice. Keeps it from banging against your gun as much. That's kind of the fancy version. The version on this gun is just a simple AK 2-point style. It has the metal still, standard buckle, but it is made of that same material, and it has a cloth keeper. So I did upgrade the slings. This is probably the most iconic gun, and the one we get closest to military from Arsenal without having to modify it. It's a dead ringer for the ARM9F, including the stock and safety selector and all of that. So if you want an ARM9F clone, all you really have to do is change the handguard, the pistol grip, and the muzzle device, and you're all set. Of course, reliability and all that is the same. Some people like this left side selector. I do. It's nice to have. The side folding stock is very easy to fold and unfold, and it's reasonably comfortable. Still not as comfortable as the fixed stock, but more so than the underfolder, I'd say. On the other hand, it is NATO length, which some people really don't like. They think it's too long. I'm not very tall, and I manage it fine. I'm 5'6", so I don't have a problem with it. One thing though, this block does hang off the back of the receiver, even on the military guns, because that's where your folding mechanism is. So when it's folded, this does hang off. Some people find that cosmetically unattractive. It's fine, it's just part of it to me, but something to be aware of. Also, I've seen some people who really get into details complain that the cleaning rod does have a little play and is a little bit rattly. That's because what's holding it in is the front sight muzzle device, and here it doesn't, like I said, go all the way into the receiver because part of the front latch is there. So there is a little bit of to it. It's not coming out, I promise, but yeah, whereas compared to any other AK, which is solid. So I'm just trying to be thorough. But I would say this is probably their most popular model overall. even if the fixed stalker is a little more versatile. Well, let's move on and look at this gun's little brother. SAM7K. Oh no, where's it at? Oh yeah. Luckily we have a flashlight. Yes, the SAM7K. And this is one that I have set up the way it really should have been all along, but it was actually very fun. Now the one you saw shooting was Jay's. I had both of ours converted. He did not go with the integrated flashlight lower handguard. I did, mostly because that's just what was available. It's fine. It actually kind of works as a kind of a foregrip, like a horizontal foregrip, because of how it bulges. Kind of like that. And it is a military grade flashlight offered on their gun. This is a semi-automatic variant of the AR-M4 SF, which is essentially their version of an AKSU or AK-74U or Krinkov shorty. But of course, like the rest, it's on a milled receiver. It's in 7.6239. And of course, it's modernized. And these are imported as a pistol. And this is still technically a pistol. You'll see, like the SAM7SF, this does have the left side safety selector. This is the pistol grip it comes with. Milled receiver. It has the scope rail. The handguard. I just put the little mag in. These actually usually ship with one little 5.10 rounder and a 30. Because they come over as pistol, 922R is not a thing, so it doesn't really matter. This has this hinge top cover, like any Krink would. It has a 2-position flip aperture rear sight. One thing that's different with this sight versus, say, a Russian, one of the apertures is actually a hooded, like a peep, a ghost ring, if you will, and the other is a notch. They also have like a lever to rotate. When I'll flip it over, I'll show you. The top cover is ribbed, so it's a little bit thinner metal than the others. The receiver is our same milled receiver. We have a short Krink gas system. We have the shorter upper handguard retained with a pin up here where it just comes right off. And then the combination front sight gas block. Well, the modifications I had to do to this, and it took me several years, and there's a couple of videos where I go really into detail, so I'll just go give kind of the Cliff's Notes here. These originally come in with about a 10.5 inch barrel, which sticks out, and a fake booster, and the front sight base is not threaded. Okay? So barrel's a little longer, not threaded. Also, they come in without anything on the rear except a sling swivel. Now, Arsenal, back when these started to come out, did offer a version with a tube essentially welded on the back and a early SB tactical arm brace known as the SAM7K-03, but those haven't been available for a number of years. Although just this year, 2019, they have started offering a version with a Picatinny rail on the back for attaching devices, so there's that. They do offer it from the factory with this military flashlight. It's called the SAM7K 02. Let's flip her over. A few things to see on this side that are unique. Here's that crank I was telling you about for the sight. You just rotate it, that way that you can use it instead of having to move the sight itself. Also, the cocking handle is a little smaller and shorter as on most cranks. And here's the large pressure pad for the flashlight. You can either squeeze it for, just momentary light, or you can actually lock it in for a constant on. Hang on. This is really hard to do at this angle, guys. I apologize. There we go. It's waterproof. It's a large. As you can tell, it's really not meant to be done with one finger. It's kind of meant to be done with your whole hand. So it's actually a very good design. And best of all, if you need to replace the batteries, you don't have to take the handguard off. You just unscrew the front, and they come right out. Anywho, thought I'd talk about that. So what I had to do, pretty simple. In the rear, I had to pull the sling swivel out of the hole, and then fill that hole with a folding brace adapter manufactured by CNC Warrior. This adapter then allows any AR-15 buffer tube to be put on, and from there you can put on whichever brace you might want. Also, if you SBR later, this hinge, you can pop it out and put on a stock. So, kind of nice. I think aesthetically, the block that CNC made goes very well with this machined receiver gun. Of course, the other big change was in the front. Had to pop off the original front sight gas block because the threads were shaved off. And of course, had to chop the barrel down. Cut it down to the correct length of 8.2 to 8.3 inches. And then had another gas block, front sight base. Put it on, and that gave me the 24mm threads again. And then once I had that in the shorter barrel, I put on a Bulgarian 4-piece flash hider and booster, which is an excellent device by just about anyone's estimation. So after doing all that, I have a SAM7K Pistol that is a real respectable approximation for an AR-M4 SF. These are reliable, especially considering the short gas system. And while they are not lightweight, again, we have a machine receiver, guys. They're not pigs, and they are very well balanced. On the flip side, they are very small. Fold this brace over. We're at about the size of any other crank. And even though they have a lot of boom, they're loud, very loud, as you'd expect, they actually have very little felt recoil, and very little muzzle flip. In other words, they're very fun to shoot, very pleasant. I wouldn't actually say they're the most fun out of all of these, but I would say in terms of crinks or other shorty AKs, they're about the most fun. And of course, they have the same smooth bolt and machine trigger as the rest. And even though these require a lot of work, it's worth it. When you do a custom project, you really become appreciative of a gun, get to know it. And the SAM7K is considerably cheaper than the other guns, so it does leave you with some room to buy parts and whatnot and still come out at about the same price as the others. So yeah, only real downsides, of course, or any downsides with the crank: short sight radius. If you mount an optic, it has a scope rail, but you'll need to make sure it can clear this rear sight. Haven't really noticed any ammo sensitivity. It seems to eat just about anything. It is a little heavier than other cranks, but the flip side to that is, well, it doesn't flip when you shoot it, so that's nice. Yeah, it's a really fun, unique gun, and it has received a lot of compliments since Jay and I had these done. And it really completes the modern Arsenal family. These two here are really examples of their most modern technology for AKs. They do have some others. They have an intermediate gun with the combo front sight gas block and a 12.5-inch barrel. Think something like an AK 102, 104, 105, but with a milled receiver. But none of those have ever been imported. They did build some in the US from parts known as the SAM7 SFC. But that was only a couple of hundred, and that was a long time ago, and even then they were expensive. And again, they're US assembled. They do now offer a carbine version of this gun with this stock, known as the Gambit, SAM7K Gambit. So basically, they took a gun like this and put on an extended muzzle device. The issue is, they cost about double what the pistols do. And at the end of the day, yes, you get their folding stock, but then you also have the extended out muzzle device, so you'll lose a lot of that compactness. So personally, Jay and I would rather have the folding arm brace and retain both access to the muzzle threads and, be quite a bit shorter. Personal preference, your mileage may vary. I think it goes without saying that none of these guns today gave us trouble. All cycled perfectly with all types of ammo. We didn't run a whole lot through every one, but all of these guns are veterans that we've shot before, so no surprises there for reliability or any of that. Well, let's toss them all back up on the table, give some final thoughts, and then kind of line out what may or may not be the right one for you, and also talk about which ones we kind of like the most. Alright, let's get to that. SAM7 UF. SAM7R. SAM7 SF. SAM7K Pistol.
There's a lot more concussion than those other ones.
You know what's funny is with the concussion, you'd think it has more flip, and it really doesn't. No. It's just concussion.
Yeah.
Alrighty, hitting the home stretch. This is kind of been more in depth than I initially planned, but never let it be said that we're not thorough. And why not? It's a Friday night here and had a pretty great day. Why not wrap my day up by yabbering about some arsenals? So which one is for you? What's kind of what to go for? Of course, we've got the SAM7R here, SAM7SF, SAM7UR, and of course, SAM7K. Well, the smallest and probably slightly lightest would be the K here. That's the shortest one of them. So if you need maximum compactness, that's where you go. However, the UF is actually pretty slim and trim too. It's only a few inches longer. Because of how the stock folds, you really don't have much hanging off the back. And it's a very slim gun overall, especially with this handguard set and everything. So it's not far behind. Then of course it's a rifle, not a pistol. The SAM7SF has this block hanging off the back, which does add. And the stock is pretty lightweight, frankly. So that's good. One thing I didn't show you, the stock release here is this very large button. Very easy to use. But it is a little longer because of having the 24mm threads from the factory. So that plus the block does add about 3 inches total. And of course the SAM7R with its fixed stock is the longest. And mine's even longer because I added this, but it's neither here nor there. These all pretty much weigh the same for all intents and purposes. As I said at the beginning, most of the other features are the same. Fit, finish, quality, all there. So, size, yep, the K. If you want to mount optics, the easiest one to mount an optic on is the R. It has a rail, and of course you can always do some kind of handguard mount. The SAM7SF has a rail too, but that rear sling swivel, it doesn't really prevent you sticking things on the rail, but it makes it a little more annoying. And likewise with the SAM7K, this rear sight, and the whole fact it's a crank, so handguards are more limited, it's even less friendly to mount optics on, but still doable. And of course the least of these for an optic would be the UF, no side rail, so you're pretty much going to have to use some kind of handguard or dust cover mount. And none of the like Barrel style ones will work because there's nothing in the back to put that on. Muzzle threads, be it 14 or 24, is kind of a draw. There are probably more devices out there for 14, so that might be a factor to select the SAM7R over or the SAM7UF over the SAM7SF, but that's up to you. To me, it's not a big deal. I like 24mm devices, but the market is slightly more narrowed. As far as the stocks themselves, again, they are any fixed stock, so that's going to be your most comfortable. You're going to get the best cheek weld, and you can make it a Warsaw length or an intermediate length or a NATO length. You can put on whatever you want. The SAM7SF, as I mentioned, has a NATO length, and it's a pretty good cheek weld area. This metal too, but it is metal. Some people find this stock uncomfortable, but more people tolerate it. Some even really like it. Of course, the underfolder is an underfolding stock, as I've talked earlier. Harder to get a cheek weld on, and the butt plate's not especially comfortable. And then finally, of course, because the K comes as a pistol, you either have to turn it into a carbine with a barrel extension, turn it into an SBR, or put on an arm brace. And frankly, an arm brace like this is more comfortable than the underfolding stock, for sure. The K and the SF have that left side thumb selector, which does limit the pistol grips you can put on it. There aren't many pistol grips cut for that selector. So if you want to put other grips on, you'll have to remove the selector. That's not so hard to do. You have to go inside, but it is a permanent modification, so something to consider. All of these come with the same accessories: sling, cleaning kit, oiler. The 3 rifles come with the short 10-round mag. The K comes usually with a little 5-rounder and a 30. The K, of course, is all Bulgarian, 100%, no 922R. The other ones, mill guns, require 5 parts. So there will be 5 US parts in these. Typically, it's hammer, disconnector, muzzle device, pistol grip, and handguard. But that varies around depending on which exact variant you pick up. For example, the variant with the Bulgarian 4-piece flash hider of the R has a US stock. I wish there was more really differences. On the other hand, I'm glad there isn't, because these are really all made identical, with the big differences just being the stock. All of these have a 16 1/4 inch barrel. Again, this comes in with a 10. Mine's cut down to 8 1/4. Price. This is hard to pin down. I will say, though, these 3 tend to be pretty close together. The cheapest has been the underfolder. The next has been the R, and then finally the SF. But typically the difference has been $100 or less. Sometimes as little as like $3. So price-wise, I wouldn't buy one to save money. I would get the one that you personally like. It's not worth it considering. And like I said with the K, the pistols are actually under $1,000 new, even if you want the one with the flashlight. And after converting mine and the parts, the adapter, the brace, the front sight, I'm still in it about the same as I'm in the SAM7 SF. So, not a big deal to me. I think it was, they're cheaper, but pretty much the money you save is what you can put towards converting it and come out like you would any other arsenal. The SAM7R, as I said, first came out under the name SLR-101 in 2012, then SAM7R 2013. The SAM7SF came out in August of 2013. I remember it clearly because Arsenal made that big PR campaign about the game changer. It was typical Arsenal overblownness, but it is a good gun. The SAM7K Pistol came out around the same time. And really the last of these to come out was the SAM7 UF, which was 2014. So really all of these came out pretty darn close together. Whew. So I'm trying to think, and that's really it. Again, they all have the double hook trigger, they all take the standard mags, internals are pretty much all identical, except for the K having a shorter gas piston and all that. It really does come down to personal preference. So what do we prefer? Jay's favorite is the SAM7 SF, I would say. At least for overall looks of the rifles. I would say just for shooting, mine would be the SAM7R. I really like the ARM9 furniture. But that's just straight up just shooting. For cool points, look, what it is, the SAM7 SF is probably my favorite too, because it's such a dead ringer for Bulgaria's more or less up-to-date current AK. And I think that's really neat. And I think it'll be the one that in the future collectors look for probably the most. But I don't want to dog on the old UF too much. I've always kept one around. It's classic, it's simple, it's kind of no nonsense, but darn it, that stock. It's just, yeah, plus no rail, which doesn't matter to me, but it does matter to some. But again, I really like the way a milled underfolding receiver is tapered, and it is so small and light. It fit in a bag actually meant for a barrel at the range. That's how small they are. Really close on the heels of the SAM7 SF for cool points is the SAM7K now that it's converted. A few years ago, we did a video called The Good and the Bad of the SAM7K showing you an unconverted one. And that gun was so much of a missed opportunity. They had everything there. They just didn't follow through. And those guns really frustrated and even kind of annoyed me, because as they were sold with the longer barrel and the neutered gas block and nothing in the back, they weren't there. And the thing is, there was no reason for it. There was no legal reason why they had to do all that. They just did. But eventually these went on sale a couple years ago. I bought a handful at a really good price. And really, after converting it, I really started to like it, just having worked on it. And again, for a crink, it's definitely my favorite of the crinks. I rarely shoot my Zastava M92 now. And I hate to say that because I like it, but this one's just much more fun and controllable and everything else. Plus, hey, flashlight for the dark. So it's definitely the most unique, and I think converted ones like this will be of interest to collectors in the future, but I don't know that they'll bring super high money. But I think they'll be of interest. I do think when it comes to Arsenal, their mill guns are really where it's at, and I think even they would agree these are their flagship products. You really don't hear of issues with these. When you do, they're very minor. They just work. And they're well built. So yeah, that's kind of why we have these. Each of them has its own aspect. But yeah, they shoot similar, but